Morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Cosi Community Service. I am not Noreen Cooper. I'm David Rudiger, and I am the worship associate today. Very warm welcome to those visiting for the first time and to our friends joining us on Zoom. Unitarian Universalism stands among the liberal faith traditions of this nation, working for social justice, repairing the world, and helping all of us grow and blossom spiritually. As a denomination, not just this congregation, but all congregations, UU advocates for LGBTQ rights. So whoever you are, whoever you love, whatever paths you've traveled so far, whatever your inspirations, you are most welcome here. Each of you represents a most hopeful miracle in our midst. And we see in each of you the potential to inform us, to challenge us, to nudge each of us toward becoming better human beings on this earth, better human beings for this earth. Today we warmly welcome back Bill Heavlin to the UUCC pulpit with a sermon entitled Self-Talk about Giving. Bill mixes psychology, poetry, yoga, and a little bit of himself, especially his humor, all to sketch a journey toward becoming a more generous giver. The chalice lighting ritual is one that unites us as Unitarian Universalists. The symbol of the lit candle dates back from the 1930s refugee crisis. The Amnesty International logo features this same lit candle and draws from the same history and symbolism. Due to fire regulations, this particular chalice is battery operated. Our chalice lighting words today come from Leah Derlin Jones and is entitled, Give Thanks, Feel Alive, and Know Love. Please join me in reading the words aloud. As we light this flame, we remember friends and loved ones near and far, and we give thanks. As the fire burns brightly, we open our minds and hearts to new ways of being, and we feel alive. As the room glows with warmth and kindness, we extend our circle ever wider to welcome those who want to come in and who we love.
The metta chant is an ancient Buddhist loving kindness practice. The word metta in Pali means positive energy and kindness to others.
Now, time for a reading. An Ox Looks at Man by Carlos Drummond de Andrade. In literary commentary, there's a saying that one cannot understand one's own culture until one steps outside it. This poem, by a 20th century Brazilian poet and writer, features the viewpoint of an ox, so likewise offers a shift in perspective. In this case, a shift in perspective to a different species. I'll give a little addendum to that. I have part of an ox inside me. I had an aortic transplant 4 months ago, and they put a cow's heart inside of me. So this poem is personal. They are more delicate even than shrubs, and they run and run from side to another, always forgetting something. Surely they lack I don't know what, basic ingredient, though they present themselves as noble or serious at times. Oh, terribly serious, even tragic. Poor things, one would say that they hear neither the song of air nor the secrets of hay. Likewise, they seem not to see what is visible and common to each of us in space, and they are sad. In the wake of sadness, they come to cruelty. All their expression lives is in their eyes and loses itself to a simple lowering of the lids to a shadow. And since there is little of the mountain among them, nothing in the hair or the terribly fragile limbs but coldness and secrecy, it's impossible for them to settle themselves into forms that are calm, lasting, and necessary. They have perhaps a kind of melancholy grace one minute, and with this they allow themselves to forget the problems and translucent inner emptiness that makes them so poor and so lacking when it comes to utterly silly and painful sounds. Desire, love, jealousy. What do we know? Sounds that scatter and fall in the field like troubled stones and burn the herbs and water. And after this, it is hard to keep chewing away at our truth. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce Bill Heavlin. Bill is recently retired from a working career of 54 years. His one son, well established in Minneapolis. He is one of UUCC's principal lay leaders, and with Esther Wallace, he recently concluded yet another iteration of the sermon writing class for lay people, Share the Pulpit, which I took sometime before, and it's terrific. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you, Tom. Thank all of you that came to this talk, which is about generosity, or at least it's adjacent to the topic of generosity, and it connects the metta chant and this poem to the topic of generosity. Oh, something you might not know about me is that I have a guru, a Sanskrit name, and a mantra, and some working knowledge of Ashtanga Yoga, one expression of Hinduism, if you will. All of which might qualify me as a seeker. But actually, I don't like the term seeker. It's too binary. We're all here looking for something, searching together. Oh, and aside about yoga, classic yoga, Ashtanga yoga, translates as 8 steps. The first steps, the yamas and the niyamas, consist of 10 ethical shall nots and 10 ethical yes do's. The third step are the asanas, the postures. And that's what we think of when we see yoga on a storefront. And the remaining 5 steps all build up meditation skills. Ashtanga yoga is one of the ethics plus meditation traditions ever recurring across world religions. Off the top of my head, I can name 3 others: Buddhism, Stoicism, and in Judaism, Musar. And I have 3 observations about this. 1, empirically, these traditions don't depend strongly on a concept of God. They are, let us say, non-theistic, a term I've acquired from our local Rabbi Moshe. Second, ethics reinforces meditation because when you live a good life, your mental processes, including meditation, are not disturbed by guilt or by scheming. And third, meditation reinforces ethics because by reducing anxiety and burnout, meditation enables clearer focus on next right things, acting ethically. As I said, Ashtanga Yoga has 8 steps. The first 3 are the yamas, the niyamas, and the asanas, the postures. And the yamas and the niyamas counsel us to become better morally and ethically. And 2 of the niyamas address giving directly. Kuta is about reducing one's possessions, really for its impact on you, the giver. And dana is about giving to others, charity, helping others. So today I'm straddling these 2 ideas, 2 notions of generosity, impact on oneself and impact on others, Kuta and dana. And if you've heard of the concept of fixed versus growth mindset, the yamas and niyamas point us toward the growth mindset. So this talks about my journey to become a better person over the last year or so. A modest swing toward the growth mindset. And the concept of fixed versus growth mindset, that's more of a spectrum, not binary. And I'm more comfortable talking in that frame than about being some kind of secret. More on a spectrum of the whole human being thing. Anyway, journeys always have 2 stories. For instance, my daily bike ride involves 3 or 4 bridges and 4 or 5 beaches. That's the map story. A fixed story, pretty predictable, every day pretty much the same, and there's even an app for that. And then there's what's different every day. The slant of the wind, the song of the air, the angle of sun, the breadth of sunset, this spring's blooms of oxalis and mustard, the abiding scent of the sage, the song of the air, the secrets of air. Different every day. And I've been trying to become more generous. Somewhat inspired by Dr. Reverend Tova's page. In her internship days at UUCC, she renamed our offertory process to the practice of generosity. So how can I become more generous? Well, it's by practice. So I become good at being generous, more generous out of habit, out of practice. By doing something over and over again, practicing, hoping to develop a new habit, the habit of being more generous. Anyway, I now have this sermon on generosity, and I hope to make it interesting also. I have a list of stuff I do, but that doesn't seem too interesting. That would be a map story. Predictable and just a little bit boring, really. But here's one story. Sometimes my bike route takes me across the entrance to our local shopping center. A good place for someone with a cardboard sign to stand asking for money. I try to give such people money. To be generous out of habit. And that's not my story. Not today. By the way, that whole transaction's a little awkward. My bike's not in the cardboard sign person's line of sight. I have to get out $1 while rolling on my bike. I have to get their attention. I don't even know if they're on station until I'm close. So I have to psych myself up to pull $1 or $5 and be ready if, and I mean if, they're even there asking. Okay, Bill. Generosity as a habit. Generosity as a habit. Get ready to give. Get ready to give. I've stumbled into making my own personal mantra. By repeating this mantra, priming myself to be generous. And that's not my story. Not today. Anyway. About 6 months ago, I'm biking Kelly Avenue toward Francis Beach. Across the street, a kid's lemonade stand, maybe he's 8 or 9 years old. I glide past, keep rolling. And earlier, I recall saying to myself, generosity is a habit, generosity is a habit. No cardboard sign by that day, but I psyched myself up nonetheless. All of this mental pre-processing as I continue to roll along, rolling away, pedaling away. And then 2.5 blocks later, I stop, turn around, bike back to the lemonade stand, and queue up. Because there's another cyclist in line. Someone's got her soul in the right gear and she's smiling and buying what this kid is selling. My turn. Cherry Kool-Aid, limeade, and sparkling mint cucumber spa water. That's the menu. Paper cup, optional reusable ceramic mug. And that limeade was delicious, let me tell you. And that's my story. The limeade was delicious. Psychologists have this concept, the default mode network. It's basically your brain state when it's sort of idle. not too engaged in any task. Your default mode network is more stable than a mood, but maybe less flexible than, say, your base personality. Your self-talk, if you will, maintains you being you in your everyday mode of being you. So this is my personal surprise. You can reshape your default mode network. As my little story about psyching myself up to be generous illustrates. Then buying limeade, with a little effort, you can dial in a slightly different default mode network. Tweak your self-talk, if you will. In this story, the key technique here is mantra, a phrase you repeat to yourself. So this is my thinking. My new thinking about the metta chant. It's not about magical thinking, not about wishes, thoughts, or prayers. The metta chant is an intervention on our default mode network, our self-talk, so that we may care a little bit more, to shape us that we care a little bit more about others. And I've become a collector of default mode network styles. Some people, a lot of people in my orbit, chronically worry. They're anxious. That's a pretty common default mode network. And some people live with a kind of ready-to-anger mode. Preset anger is also surprisingly common as a default mode network. And for a quick assessment of your default mode network, just consider your driving. Do you coast to a red stoplight? Or do you rely on strong braking? Frequent freeway lane changes? That default mode network values every second of time. To quote the poet De Andrade, they run from one side to the other, always forgetting something. Social justice activist Eve Ender described herself this way. An activist is someone who cannot help but fight for something. That person is not usually motivated by the need for power or money or fame, but in fact is driven slightly mad by some injustice. So much so that he or she is compelled by some internal moral engine to act to make it better. Ensler is describing the default mode network of an activist. And that's pretty common in UU congregations. And De Andrade comments, a kind of melancholy grace, and with this they allow themselves to forget their translucent inner emptiness. Maybe you can see where I'm rolling. I'm trying to reshape my self-talk, my default mode network. That's part of a generalized aspiration to become a better human, the growth mindset thing. Today I'm working through a particular virtue, generosity, and I presented a particular technique, mantra. Technique-wise, sometimes I write. Yet over the last year or so, I've grown to have new respect for mantra as a technique also. Oh, and virtues. On the order of service, there's a list of 21 virtues right above the announcements. Shuffle some people. 21 is not a magic number. There are other lists. Benjamin Franklin listed 13. Here's today's checklist. 1. Does the growth mindset appeal to you? 2. If so, which virtues or which one virtue speaks to you for you to improve? And 3, for that virtue, what or which techniques might you use to grow into that virtue? Did you hear what I said? It's a call to action. Today's call to action. 1, growth mindset. 2, pick a virtue. 3, find techniques to grow that virtue. And I offer mantra as one technique and writing as another. By the way, this call to action presented here in a service on generosity does not actually ask you to be more generous. That's my gift to you. But you should still feel free to opt into giving something. Opt into being generous, to pour more love into the world. In clinical psychology, there's a big idea. Behavior induces feelings. First you do something, then your thinking, your feeling, your self-talk backfills into alignment. Your default mode network lines up. As if your deeds, the things you do, reflect back from some unseen emotional mirror as feelings. Feelings working to make sense of your deeds. This is the basis for cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. You act first, you give first, you are generous first, and then your feelings lighten up. You start feeling gratitude. Another version of this idea. If you're depressed, exercise more. Because when you're depressed, you don't feel like doing much. And so you don't feel like exercising. Mood depressed, so no action, no exercise. So run this backwards. In spite of feeling depressed, exercise, get out. Then the feelings line up, trying to reconcile the recent activity. So your moods nudge toward less depression. Mind you, please don't tell someone who's depressed to go exercise. Depressives hate getting advice. Instead, invite them to walk. Accompany them. Choose to be with them, to move with them, to hear them, to make sense of being with them. You'll like them even more. And maybe they'll sense this positive regard. Maybe attribute it to the walking, the talking. Feelings line up. Doing precedes feeling. Moving can precede feeling like moving. Giving can precede gratitude. And that limeade was truly, truly delicious. On my office wall, there's this mostly grayscale watercolor. Storm clouds, weathered barn, leafless almond orchard, and less prominent in the foreground, one warm patch of color, a cow, a brown cow. We know it's a cow because there's a calf nearby. You probably recall that in Hinduism, cattle are sacred. And from my yoga days, some of this aesthetic rubs off on me. Cattle symbolize calm and steadiness under storms and season changes and thunder stuff happening. And certainly today's poet, De Andrade, knew this when he imagined that ox looking at man. In East Miramar, I'm neighbors to a herd of cattle. They have babies, calves. They often gather under the shade of this street side tree. Default mode networks on my mind, De Andrade's poem in my head. I pause and look at one cow. Because she's looking back, curiously chewing her cud, ruminating, slowly batting one eyelash, then another, ruminating and inviting me to ruminate too. Inviting me to ruminate too. She seems to say, default mode networks? That's all you got, Bill? That's just follow your gut stuff. Bill, remind them of the mountain. That there's so little of the mountain in them. The mountain's so big. So, what does that mean to you? From a growth mindset point of view, I mean. What does that mean to you? So little of the mountain in us. Now, would you give more of the mountain to yourself? To someone you love? To someone you've only just met? This Namaste gesture ends most yoga classes. This greeting traditionally meant from the God in me to the God in you. Today, I offer this UU adapted Namaste, this twice decentered Namaste, echoing in form the UU chalice and its flame. From the heart I hold to the heart you hold. May you find peace in this day. May you weave joy with this day. And may you form memories too from this day. Namaste.
Now we extinguish our candle. Please join me in reading these chalice extinguishing words by Deborah Burrell, Kindle New Sparks. We have basked in the warmth and beauty of this flame and this community. As the chalice flame is extinguished, let us carry its glow within. Let us kindle new sparks within these walls and beyond.
And now we have a closing hymn and our usual ad hoc panel of hymn leaders assembling.